Welcome back to the Inside Athletic Training Podcast for episode 103. Today, we're joined by Lauren Powers, athletic trainer for the Cincinnati Reds High A affiliate, the Dayton Dragons. Lauren shares her journey into athletic training, the unique challenges and rewards of working in minor league baseball, and the growing impact of women in the profession of athletic training. Enjoy the show. All right, Lauren, welcome to the Inside Athletic Training Podcast for episode 103. Very excited to have you on to talk about your career in baseball, athletic training, and your current role with the Cincinnati Reds. But to get us started today, I want to start with getting some background information on you and your career path for our listeners. So talk about, how you broke into athletic training, maybe what inspired you to get into the field. I know you spent some time at Northern Arizona University for your master's and Arizona for your undergrad, but walk us through kind of the progression of your career in professional athletic training.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on. So my reason for getting into athletic training, I think, is pretty similar to the majority of us. I got hurt playing sports in high school, realized that the career wasn't an option, and kind of saw what they did day to day at the high school level and was very interested in that. I also had some interest in physical therapy early on. But I realized, rehabbing athletes back to sport is incredibly rewarding, and that's kind of what I was looking for in my career. So that's how I got my start. And then I was lucky enough to get an internship with the Dodgers when I was still in school at Northern Arizona University for my master's. So I kind of got my first taste of professional baseball then. Absolutely fell in love with it. And then as soon as I graduated, got an internship with the Reds in Arizona, and been here ever since.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I want to talk kind of about that first internship with the Dodgers. What steps did you take to get that internship? Was it just like applying through their website or through PBATS or something? Was there a connection? A lot of our listeners, as you might know, are kind of looking to break into professional baseball athletic training or a similar sport. So always curious to hear kind of what process you took to kind of break into the game with the Dodgers.
Yeah, so I was pretty lucky. It was kind of right place, right time. One of my classmates was friends with Mauricio, who was the Dodgers medical coordinator at the time. And so we kind of made a connection there. Since I went to school in Phoenix, we went out to Camelback Ranch one day. I got to meet him, and then kind of parlayed that into an internship in the Pioneer League that summer.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Mauricio is a great guy. I think he's with Austin FC now in professional soccer, but a great guy and a former PBATS member there. Well, Lauren, you've built quite the career with the Reds, and been with them for a while. Have there been any most meaningful stepping stones or kind of moments where you feel like you're ready for the next progression of your career? As you've obviously when you jump into your first internship, it's you don't know what to expect, but as you move on, you get more and more comfortable. Have there been some meaningful moments when you kind of have realized you're ready for the next challenge in your career in athletic training?
Yeah, I've been very lucky to spend my entire career, well, minus the internship, with one organization, and the consistency has been really nice. I think the most meaningful stepping stones I've had has been my time in the Dominican when I first started. It really impacted me as a person and an athletic trainer, just getting a deeper understanding of the culture down there, having a better understanding of how these athletes grow up, what they see, what they're used to. It made me a lot more empathetic in treating them. And it also helped me build relationships with them even now. Like, they have a lot of respect for us going down there and working, because it's very similar to them coming up here and playing baseball. Like, culture they're not comfortable with,
Sure.
So that was really impactful for me. And also my first year at an affiliate in 23 out in the Florida State League. You learn a lot your first year on your own.
Sure.
And it's kind of a little bit of baptism by fire. But I think the biggest thing I learned was learning how to prioritize things. Like, as athletic trainers, we're pulled in so many different directions to help the team, and learning what needs to be done now versus what can wait was really, really good learning opportunity for me down there.
Yeah, those are great points. I want to kind of click into those both aspects a little bit here, because there's, when we host our athletic training student symposium, there's a big presentation about the DR and the work there and how valuable it can be, but a lot of the students may be a little bit hesitant to go out of the country for maybe their first internship or their first job. So it sounds like you had a great experience and it meant a lot to your career. What would you say to students who, to encourage them to go get that experience because it's such an important part of baseball?
Yeah, it was definitely outside my comfort zone. Um, but it's a great opportunity. It can be a little intimidating going to a foreign country, especially if you don't speak Spanish. But
Hmm.
especially in my organization, they do such a good job of making sure we're supported down there. We're definitely not left alone on an island. So you have a lot of support, and it's just a great way to get your foot in the door. You also have a lot of opportunity as an athletic trainer to practice what you preach,
Hmm.
where you're definitely a little bit more separated from the organization. So you have some more freedom and you're more decision making opportunities. And I think those were very valuable in my career.
Yeah, definitely. And then you mentioned kind of a similar sentiment that a lot of your colleagues across the league on the show have mentioned is the first year on your own at affiliate is, I don't know if terrifying is the right word, but just a little overwhelming. And you don't know how things work yet. You've learned and you've studied and you've done internships, but when you get on your own, it's a different ballgame. Was that experience something that you thought you were ready for, and then when you got there, did you find out maybe you had a ton more to learn than you ever imagined?
Yeah, so it's kind of one of those things of you don't know what you don't know.
Hmm.
So I definitely felt ready in the Reds organization. There are two athletic trainers, both in the DR and in Arizona.
Okay.
So you kind of have that peer-to-peer support every day, and low A is kind of where we step away from that, and you're more on your own. So I felt ready. And then when you get there, sometimes you feel like you're not ready, but you just
Uh-huh.
really need to trust your education, trust your experience. Like I said, it's really just trying to stay organized and prioritize because there's always something to do. But just making sure you're putting like the health of your athletes in front of everything. And it was a difficult transition, but one that I'm thankful I had the opportunity to do.
Yeah, for sure. That's what we've heard from a lot of the guests, or that time in the DR or times at the first affiliate is you grow so much because you're like a sponge. There's so much to learn, and whether it's packing or just communicating with players, and so much that goes in every day that I don't think a lot of our listeners even know. So that's cool to hear from you there. Well, Lauren, looking back on kind of your time, education that you mentioned. Did you feel that you did everything you could, school wise, education wise, to prepare yourself for going out on your own at an affiliate, or was there something maybe you would have done different at an internship or in school to kind of prepare, or maybe you just don't know what you don't know yet, like you mentioned?
Yeah, so obviously the basis for our careers is always in the classroom and learning that basic knowledge, but
Hmm.
a lot of baseball specific things are not taught in school. Like no one's teaching you how to fix a broken fingernail, which we see, or pack for an away trip, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
So those internships were really key for me. They like gain more experience in the baseball realm because it is pretty specialized, especially professional baseball. One thing I would change, I wish I would have immersed myself in the culture in the Dominican a little bit more and
Hmm.
really increased my Spanish knowledge. I always say I speak good baseball Spanish. Like I could hold a conversation with my athletes. I can get through an
Yeah.
evaluation. But I mean, as everyone in baseball knows, that's just really an invaluable skill is to be able to fully communicate in Spanish. And so if I could go back, I think I would put a little bit more effort into learning Spanish while I was down there.
Yeah. And do you guys do within the Reds? I know, Tomas Vera, long time assistant with the Reds, Spanish speaker, great communicator in English as well. Does he kind of preach or encourage people to learn Spanish or improve their Spanish just because it's coming from the top down, kind of within the organization?
Yeah, I think we see an example of it in Tomas. I think he's actually acting as our interpreter in the major league level right now, too.
Okay.
So it's really such a good skill for him to have and helps him in his work so much. And the Reds have a lot of ways of supporting us. I think we have a Rosetta Stone option. We have
Okay.
a couple apps we can use to help us. And so it's really just an all over focus on improving our Spanish as a whole staff, just because we
Hmm.
know it's going to help our athletes at the end of the day.
Sure. And I think it's interesting. You mentioned, there's some things you just can't learn in a classroom. You said like fingernails, and I've heard from people restringing gloves or shoes or just like stuff you kind of learn by problems arising or issues arising. Has that been kind of the most surprising thing to you of just kind of learning culture? And I guess a lot of people have said just feel, just have feeling your way around the athletic training room.
Yeah, there's a saying you can't teach feel or something like
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
But yeah, absolutely. We're so much more than just what people think athletic trainers are in professional baseball. We're
Hmm.
fixing gloves. We're in the middle of the game. We're fixing gloves. We're painting fingernails for catchers. It's just so many like weird things that most people don't realize that we are responsible for.
Hmm.
So it's a lot of on the job learning, asking mentors and people that have been there before. Because like I said, it's one of those things you don't know it until you know it.
For sure. Yeah, and I think that's one thing that's really interesting to me about athletic trainers at all levels is, you do impact winning through what you do as a part of the medical staff, but there's so much that goes into it that really does impact the play on the field. For example, you said restringing a glove or painting fingernails in a pinch, like, when someone can't see. And, I think all those things are really underrated and cool aspects of the job that really, show the value of a good athletic trainer and their impact on winning. Well, speaking of that, I want to kind of get into your time at Dayton, high A affiliate for the Cincinnati Reds here. How's the year been for you? Talk about being in Dayton at the high A affiliate, and kind of like what a typical. I know that's the wrong word. There's no typical days, but what does a game day look like for you when you guys are at home?
Yeah, the year in Dayton has been great. So I'm very lucky. In Dayton, we have what we call a medical liaison. So it's
Okay.
basically another certified athletic trainer who actually used to have my job,
Hmm.
now employed by the hospital system here, but he works all home games with me.
Oh, cool.
So it's kind of nice to have help at home, another set of hands, and just someone to bounce ideas off of. It's really nice. I'm very, very blessed to be at the level I'm at. But
Hmm.
yeah, a normal day, usually going in about anywhere between 11 o'clock and 1. Usually they're about an hour before the players come in. We're lucky that everyone lives in walking distance of the stadium here. So players just walk over when the clubhouse opens.
Hmm.
I get there early, set up the training room, make sure everything's ready to go, fill up the tubs, create the arm care schedule for my pitchers every day, and then just work on those admin tasks that are kind of always hanging around before
Hmm.
my athletes start getting in. And then we move on to, facilitating rehab programs, corrective programs, whatever they need to get ready before they go out to throw or practice before BP. Also, depending on the time of the month, we take a lot of range of motion measurements. We do some movement screens just to make sure that those corrective programs that we're using with our athletes are still doing what they're supposed to be doing and we're making good progress, monitoring for anything that can lead into an injury in the future and try to take that more preventative approach. And then we usually have, throwing program, BP, all that good stuff outside. Come back in at about, I would say 5:30 during the day. And then it's more those pregame treatments or post-throw treatments for those pitchers that aren't throwing.
Hmm.
So we have a set arm care program that we use from the Dominican all the way to Cincinnati in our organization. So it provides a lot of consistency for our athletes. And it's that time of day that we usually knock a lot of that out. And then we change and get ready for the game at 7.
Hmm. Yeah, it's. I think it's interesting to hear you talk about the day and just what maybe the outsider might think the athletic trainer does. I've heard, from a lot of people, the public thinks you get there and you tape some ankles and throw some ice on an arm and watch the game, which obviously we know is far from true. But Lauren, throughout the season this year, have you seen kind of your responsibilities or your workload evolve from day one to now, or even just kind of the your expectations of what you were going there to do to what they actually turned out to be? Have things changed at all?
Yeah, so I think over the course of the season, our focus with our athlete changes a lot. At the beginning of the season, it's a lot of guys getting used to being at the affiliate for the first time. We're getting used to being at our affiliate for oftentimes the first time.
Yeah.
So, getting used to your doctors, getting a routine, getting everything set up. And then it's more educating the guys on, this is how the schedule is going to go. This is what you're expected to do in the training room, all that good stuff. And then as the year goes on, we take a more focused look on recovery and monitoring their workload.
Hmm.
So it's just staying on top of, hey, this guy had a ton of yardage, which my strength coach monitors with Hawkeye, which is great. So we can see
Uh-huh.
exactly how much they're sprinting during a week, and we can communicate with that with the manager and our hitting coach, make sure that we're not pushing guys too much. And also making sure that we continue to push those guys that maybe didn't get a ton of playing time, but need to keep their workload up for the next week.
Hmm.
So as the year goes on, it's more recovery, keeping guys on the field and managing those like little injuries that pop up before they turn into something that is IL worthy.
Sure, the dreaded IL, of course.
Yeah.
Well, you talked about working with the local doctors and getting to know them. I know that's an important piece, but there's a lot of staff members. We talked about Tomas and Sean and the guys at the big league level, and there's so many people within an athletic training staff across an organization. What's the communication like? Are you reporting back to the coordinator every day, every night, constantly in communication? Are you talking to the big league staff? What are kind of your communication strategies to make sure that everybody is in the loop there?
Yeah, so within the Reds, we have every affiliate kind of has a group chat with our athletic training coordinator, our assistant coordinator, and our Latin American coordinator. So
Hmm.
that way, if I take someone out of the game, it immediately goes to all of them. So all of them are in the same loop on everything, and then they pass it along to the necessary staff above, coordinators, whatever that may be.
Hmm.
Um, and that's really helpful because I can get instant feedback from my boss on what he wants to do, if he agrees with how we're handling it, things like that. So it makes communication very easy with him. And then as far as the big league staff, I am very fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of great experience from a lot of different areas. They definitely have an open door policy. I wouldn't say we talk often just because we're so busy during the season, but if I
Hmm.
have ever question or anything like that, they are always willing to answer the phone, answer an email. I'm particularly lucky because I'm about an hour away from Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's
So
great.
Sean kind of opens the door for me and lets me come down and kind of experience how they run their training room and see how things work on a typical game day for them. And I think
Hmm.
that's a great opportunity with me being so close just to see how it's done at the highest level.
Yeah, definitely a benefit. I always think that's such a huge part of certain affiliates being close by is you get that exposure and get to see how things work at the big league level. Obviously, very important. One thing that's interesting, I just thinking and listening to you talk about the work. You mentioned like the group chats with the staff, and then Hawkeye to monitor athlete movement and so much more. Do you ever think kind of about the technology and how helpful it is for a younger athletic trainer like you, and kind of compare it to, or even wonder what people did back even like a decade ago in terms of communication and monitoring via technology?
Yeah, it's so crazy to think about how much has changed even in the last like 10 years in athletic
Hmm.
training. So I've been in it for 8 years, and looking back to
Yeah.
what we were doing then to now is incredibly impressive of all the data and all the metrics that we have at our fingertips to look at to make decisions.
Hmm.
I have some coaches that played in the major leagues, 30-ish years ago. And so to talk to them about things and when they were coming up through the minor leagues to hear stories is just crazy because it's just so different.
Yeah,
But
no
yeah,
question.
all those numbers make it just so much easier for us to do our jobs. Obviously, there's still a subjective factor to what we're doing and the decisions we're making, but the more objective data we can have to make our decisions, the better. And so I think it's incredibly helpful from
Hmm.
Hawkeye to pulse monitors for our pitchers. We have a lot of numbers at our fingertips that are really beneficial with the health of our athletes.
Hmm. Yeah, and one thing you mentioned, you talked about changes. One thing that's changed a lot over the years, kind of shifting gears here, is the number of women in professional baseball athletic training. A handful of years ago, Sue Falsone was head athletic trainer with the Dodgers, worked with Nancy Patterson over there with the Dodgers as well. Kelly Rhodes with the Tigers as an assistant there right now. So many women kind of making huge steps and moves through athletic training staffs across Major League Baseball and other sports. as a woman working in kind of a traditionally male dominated field like baseball athletic training, are there challenges you've felt or faced throughout your time and like you mentioned, your past 8 years in athletic training?
Yeah, so it's definitely making a big change. I think there's more and more females in baseball in a variety of roles
Yeah.
every year, especially with we just had an umpire in the big leagues too.
Yeah.
So they're kind of making strides in every aspect of the game, which is really cool to see and a cool thing to be a part of. I've been very, very fortunate that I work in an organization that really advocates for females in baseball. And I have not had too many challenges that have been
Hmm.
connected with my gender. I think the biggest things I see is like the simple daily things that it kind of throws a wrench in my like day to day moves of, I can't just go in the clubhouse and grab an athlete that I need. Like
Yeah.
I have to send someone in to get them. I can't, my staff hangs out in their clubhouse after a win and, talks about the game, and I'm not really in on those meetings.
Hmm.
So it's just those simple little things that kind of pop up that I notice. But you just kind of have to find alternatives and workarounds with it. I just yell for the athlete if I need him, or find someone to go grab him, or and finding like other opportunities to connect with my staff outside the clubhouse. So it's something that is present in baseball, especially with the facilities. I don't think the facilities have really reflected the cultural change as much.
Yeah, it's a great way
Because
to say it.
I've always felt welcome. It's just, sometimes walking through the clubhouse to get to my training room isn't ideal, things like
Uh-huh.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, we had Amanda Lee with the Mariners on the show a few months ago, and we talked with her about the same topic, and she said really the same thing as you. Like she's always felt very welcome and included, and like the inclusive atmosphere has been great in baseball. But the one thing that really was tough was like, hey, where do I shower? Where do I change? Just making things a little more inconvenient, I guess you could say. And her main thing was also like you said, the facilities that really haven't kept up with it. But as things change across the league and at the big league level, I'm sure we'll see some changes there. But great to hear the inclusive atmosphere. I know that that's super important, like to baseball, like you mentioned with the first female umpire a couple weeks ago making her debut, which was awesome to see. Lauren, did you have any female role models in athletic training that you looked up to coming up, or was it kind of whoever was willing to share their time and kind of mentor you? That was who you kind of went with.
Yeah, so I definitely looked up to Sue Falsone, who you mentioned
Hmm.
previously. I've been able to meet her a couple times through her education company, Structure and
Yeah.
Function, and she's been great to connect with there. I've
Hmm.
also Liana Olivar used to be the baseball athletic trainer at the University of Arizona. I worked with her during my undergrad. She still works with Arizona Athletics. But her and Justine Flores, who was one of my preceptors at the University of San Diego, where I did a clinical site, they both really have inspired me and continue to be great mentors and friends. They're very strong females in the baseball world. They have a great balance, I think, of keeping things fun, but also professional. And they're two people that I try to emulate, in my everyday life. But I have
Sure.
realized, like, through professional baseball, women just kind of tend to connect with each other in pro ball, just
Yeah.
because, we experience similar things. And it's
Hmm.
a lot of things that people don't really understand unless you're in it. So it's been really nice to connect with a lot of females throughout my time, and just really have someone to discuss things with and connect with on that level.
Hmm. No doubt, you're obviously going to connect with people you share experiences with. So I totally understand that. Well, did you have, looking back at your time in school and coming up, and I'm sure it was at sometimes intimidating for anyone breaking into a new career, but also people like yourself kind of breaking new ground and changing things quite a bit for the better. Is there any advice that you might share with, younger women out there in college looking to break into athletic training and sports, and maybe some might be intimidated or worried about kind of the things you mentioned. Any key tips or advice for those people out there?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing I wish I was told coming into professional baseball is to not be afraid to take up space. Just because
Yeah.
the environment or the facilities in the clubhouse isn't really conducive to having a female there, that does not mean that you haven't earned your right to be in that room and that you deserve to be there. And your ideas and what you have to say is definitely valuable. So there's no reason to kind of dual your light or your voice just because the room isn't really ideal for you to be in, if that makes sense at all.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And within the res, do you guys have, kind of like mentorship programs, or how do you guys kind of operate in terms of getting time? I know you mentioned you're so close to the big league club that you can kind of pop over and see Tomas and Sean and everybody there, but do you guys have kind of like a mentorship program in place or development program within the athletic training staff?
So we don't have anything like super formal in terms of mentorship, but we are in daily communication with all the minor league athletic trainers. Like we are a
Hmm.
staff that gets along so well on a personal level that, we end up talking about personal stuff, checking in with each other. And then it turns into, well, I have this injury going on. Like, what do you guys think? Like kind of having the opportunity to pick each other's brains. I think that group chat's going off all day, every day
Yeah.
amongst the staff. So we're all very connected in that way. In terms of females in baseball, the Reds have started a women's initiative network. And
Awesome.
that's championed by some people on the business side in Cincy as well as the baseball side. So it's kind of cool to have that opportunity to connect with women in baseball that we don't usually cross paths with on the business side, and kind of get everybody's ideas and experiences from all different sides of the game.
Hmm. Yeah, that's great. I know a lot of a lot of clubs are doing that and looking to continue kind of the rich history of diversity and inclusion for all people in baseball. Lauren, I want to kind of get into more a bit about like just minor league baseball in and of itself. The season's so long and can be such a grind physically and emotionally. The players obviously tire out, but is it something that you kind of also feel as an athletic trainer where mentally or physically you're tiring out throughout the season? What do you do to kind of stay fresh? Obviously you need to have such a big role taking care of these athletes.
Yeah, the season is definitely a grind out here. One thing I have realized in my 3 years at the affiliate is having outside interests of baseball is really key to keeping yourself grounded.
Hmm.
It's so easy to slip into like the baseball world because that's all we do all day, every day. And being so far from like friends and family, it's easy to just let work become your identity and
Hmm.
that's all you do. So I've learned like intentionally setting aside time for myself, whether that's going to the gym in the morning and making sure I get that time in, or, just taking a couple minutes to read a book that's not necessarily baseball centered. It just gives you time to kind of step away from the game and clear your mind a little bit.
Yeah. And with it being such a long season and your kind of work in life is probably so much different than a lot of your friends who work in an office or something like that. Is it tough to kind of explain, why you may miss out on things throughout the year during the baseball season? Do the people around you in your life kind of understand the demand of what you guys do?
Yeah, that's a great point. It's really challenging when it comes to personal relationships,
Yeah.
to kind of keep that up because especially as an athletic trainer, we're on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So,
Hmm.
even if you do have plans and a player gets sick and needs to see a doctor, that's now your new plan. So
Yeah.
I think I am very fortunate that a lot of my friends are athletic trainers. So even if they aren't at the professional baseball level, they understand kind of what our job entails.
Sure.
But the baseball life is not for everybody, and it is difficult to stay in touch with a lot of people. I've missed a lot of weddings, a lot of
Hmm.
newborn babies, all that stuff kind of just
Yep.
takes a backseat during the season. So finding a good support system that has a good understanding of your job and doesn't hold that against you, I think is very key.
Yeah, and one thing that's very important to a lot of our staffs, and PBATS has done a lot of work on the mental health aspect of baseball, not just for players, but also for athletic trainers. Can you talk a bit about that? I know you mentioned, doing stuff for yourself, going to the gym, maybe it's playing golf or just getting away from the game. But when there are so many games and you don't have much time to do that, is there anything else you do in terms of like your mental approach to kind of just grinding through the season?
Yeah, it's been really cool to see the changes in the focus on mental health on the side of baseball. We have an excellent, they used to be called mental performance. I'm not sure what our department is called
Sure.
now because it's such an evolving field that it changes every year. But they've been fantastic, and they're so great about checking in on staff too. because it is all about the players. That's what we're here for. We're sacrificing a lot to help them develop, but at the same time, we need to take care of ourselves too. So it's really nice that they check in with us as well. And I think, even if I can only get a 20-minute workout in, it's better than nothing in the mornings. So just taking any of those small bits of time, it doesn't have to be, we're going to go play 18 holes of golf before we go in for the day, because that's not always realistic for us. So, taking small bits of time, making sure at the end of the day, I'm always taking time to either read or, make a phone call to a family member or loved one and just kind of step away from the game a little bit before going to sleep, and then waking up and doing it all again has been really key for me.
Absolutely. I know that's so important. And so many athletic trainers, just you constantly hear that there is no work-life balance, which is true, but it's cool to hear you say you can find a couple minutes here and there for yourself, which is extremely well deserved. Lauren, I want to kind of shift gears here and talk about the level you're at high A. These athletes are so young, and there's so many people, like you mentioned earlier in the show, kind of just learning their way around the affiliate for the first couple months and being in a new place, maybe being in a new country for the first time, and also potentially being away from their family for the first time as well. How do you approach kind of building trust with those younger athletes? You're kind of like a veteran in the room with so much experience within the Reds organization. You probably know so many of these people from being at the complex. How do you kind of play the role of, athletic trainer, but also almost like therapist or psychologist, and kind of helping people out with things off the field as well?
Yeah, we play an interesting role in professional baseball, especially with our high school kids. This might be the first time that they're away from their parents and their family, and they're trying to figure all this out. So just being a resource for them, and giving them some grace as they're learning. Like, no one expects perfection in any way when they're just trying to figure things out. And I think that's also key to our jobs, is building those relationships. It goes back to that it's kind of a cheesy quote, but it's true that no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And so like, you can be the best athletic trainer in the world, and if they don't trust you enough to tell you what's going on or communicate, it's not going to matter. So it really starts with that base relationship of being a resource for them. And just being there to support them in any way that they need. It might not always be medical. It might be asking them how they're doing through a breakup or things like that, where we're kind of the shoulder that falls on in professional baseball. And that's also one of the cool things about our job, is building these relationships with these guys. And I feel very blessed to play a little bit of a part in their journey, hopefully to the big leagues. But that's kind of all encompassing with our jobs.
Yeah. And I think what's really cool about your career is you spend so much time with one organization. Is it fun for you or enjoyable to kind of build those relationships with maybe someone just out of high school, and then see their progression, maybe work with them at an affiliate, and then see them go on and move even onto the big leagues? What does that kind of mean to you as an athletic trainer?
It's really cool. And it's something that I've stepped into recently now with my time in the Reds. Being here for 8 years, I'm starting to see those guys go up. Like South Stewart just got called up the other day. And I had him for 2 years. And so it's just really cool to see all of the hard work that they've put into their career, but also all the hard work of all the staff and everyone else that's helped them every way, on every step of the way. So, it's definitely a team effort, and it's just really cool to see the dividends of all of that work. And then I think it's one of the best parts of the job, is definitely seeing everybody go on to succeed.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned earlier, your job is kind of rooted in the anatomy and taking care of the athlete and ensuring they're healthy and helping them recover. You talked a little bit about the kind of getting high school kids in or super young athletes. Is it kind of like interesting or fun for you to teach these athletes how to understand their bodies better, what recovery means, long-term health as an athlete in professional baseball? Is that kind of a cool aspect of it, is getting these fresh kids in who really don't understand much about their bodies to begin with? They're just naturally really, really gifted, and you kind of get to show them, how things work at this level.
Absolutely. The education part of my job is one of my favorite things. I feel like it's so impactful, especially when they start out so young, like you said. and kind of see their knowledge grow and see them, get if their pitcher gets set into a really good weekly routine and kind of start to figure it out. It's really rewarding to see them make it through a whole season and like see the dividends of all of their effort that they have put in. Mm-hmm. It's one of my favorite parts of the job for sure.
Yeah, that's got to be awesome seeing someone you worked with as, maybe an 18-year-old, 8 years later getting the call up and so much of an impact that you must have had on their career. It got to be really cool there. Well, Lauren, as you kind of reflect on your journey, 8 years and so much time with the Cincinnati Reds, is there any moment or rehab assignment or, getting someone back to the field? Is there a singular moment that you say you may be most proud of as an athletic trainer?
I don't know if there's a singular moment that really sticks out. I think overall, I'm really proud of how much I have stepped out of my comfort zone in my career and kind of the reputation that I've created for myself and my organization. Like I mentioned before, I feel so lucky to have been able to stay here for my career and build those relationships over the past few years. So that just makes it much more enjoyable and really rewarding.
On that note, kind of looking ahead to wrap things up today, Lauren, everyone has goals, to make it to the big leagues. That's not why you do what you do. I always say athletic trainers you serve people first, and it's really awesome to see that. But there are goals to get to the big leagues and be at the top of your field. What are your aspirations, kind of short term, and then going forward, kind of long term in this profession?
Yeah, moving forward, I really just want to continue to improve my knowledge and experience in athletic training. I think there's always something new to learn, always a new, modality or skill to be trained in to help my athletes to the best of my ability. Mm-hmm. And so I just continue to focus on that. Long term, like you said, it's everyone's goal to be in the big leagues, players and staff included. So that's definitely something that you think about on the horizon. But for right now, I'm really just focused on doing my job to the best of my ability and helping out my athletes as much as I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a difficult job. And like you mentioned so many times, there might not be as much work-life balance as other people have, and you might miss things, but there's so much so many rewarding aspects of being an athletic trainer. So we all, appreciate what you do every day. But Lauren, it's been great hearing about your story and your career and your time with the Reds. And we wish you and your staff nothing but the best of luck as the minor league season wraps up here in the next couple of weeks.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for listening to the Inside Athletic Training Podcast. For more information about PBATS and athletic training, visit pbats.com. See you next time.